Welcome everyone. Welcome back to the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. Now officially starting the official part of the show. If you're watching this on Patreon, you get the full stuff. Of course, you get the full show. But if you're just joining us on audio or YouTube, we've been going for 30 minutes already. Talking about a whole lot of stuff already. So you should sign up to the Patreon for that, patreon.com/pagans. But here with me today, I have, of course, another amazing guest for you. When do I not? In at Wilson. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for the pre-chat. That was great already. And for those who may not know you just yet, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? What's your secrets?
Well, thanks for having me, Stein. I'm looking forward to this. I know less about Europe than I wish I did, and that's why I find it always intriguing to find someone who's making a headway with a podcast. I'm from the United States. I'm from Ohio. My name's Ed Wilson. Just to give you a background, originally I am a rare book and document dealer, and it has a lot to do with my topic, which today is UFOs. The reason it has so much to do is I discovered an amazing archive while I was searching auctions. I go to auctions, and so many people don't care about books, and it's my fetish. Books, history, documents. It's always been what I do and love, but most people don't have time for it. Life's too busy for them. I make time for it because I can't quit. Consequently, as a rare book and document dealer, I'll go to auctions and I will buy something at the auction, and I will be able to get a great price on it because it's a book or a document, and most people are not interested in history like that. And I can get it at a good price, and then I sell it in the world's largest auction houses. And the rewarding part is a lot of times I'm saving stuff from the trash bin that ends up in a museum. What happened is I went to an auction, and I'm very familiar with the NASA program here. I'm 70 years old, so when NASA was born, I was like a kid. And when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, I was 14. So I watched every single launch with wide eyes. We didn't have the technology you have now. I had to learn math with the slide rule, okay? And a cell phone was unbelievable for us. We always thought that was science fiction. And now today, the reality of what's going on just shows the tremendous, tremendous changes that have had. And a lot of it, I think, I'm a skeptic, okay? What I'm going to present to you today is not stories of UFOs. It's nothing but 100% verifiable documents, okay? I'm a historian. In order for me to sell a rare book or a rare map, my whole business depended upon me authenticating exactly what I had. No one wants to buy a fake item. I would be bankrupt if I bought something and it was fake. So I am an extensive librarian and extensive documenter. And it came in useful here because what I got was this. First of all, just one quick thing, because I'm not certain in Europe if you understand the nature of the early space race. 1957, when the Soviet Union launched the R-7 intercontinental ballistic missile, the first intercontinental ballistic missile, it caught the United States completely off guard, and it terrorized the entire nation. In the old days, they would have nuclear bombs on, and big propeller craft bombers that would fly across the vast expanses of Russia in order to get to you guys there in Western Europe. Holy cow, you'd watch the darn thing fly for 4 or 5 hours, and it'd still be in Russian territory on its way to bomb you. Okay. Now, that was terrifying, of course, because nuclear war is a terrifying thing. All war is a terrifying thing. That was horrifying. But for us, when they launched the R-7 intercontinental ballistic missile, nuclear war was no longer hours away. You no longer had the benefit of a radar system saying, here they come, let's scramble the jets. You have hours and hours before it happened. When the R-7 launched and we learned of it, it was no longer a matter of hours. It was a matter of minutes. So there's no defense in minutes. It was terrifying. We didn't have any treaties. Anytime anything was launched in the early space program, it was just very possible that you could start World War III. Today we have treaties, or back then you had treaties. Hey, you can't bring a warship within 3 miles of our coast, all right? But we had treaties that made that act of warfare manageable. When we started the space race, there were no treaties. And if you flew something overhead, how do we know that that's not a nuclear bomb that's going to go over our capital 8 times a day? And how can we be safe? So it was always the threat of war, and that's what had to be dealt with. So all the secrecy that ended up being incorporated into our world came from fear of nuclear weapons. It was not a matter of secrecy to hide UFOs. It's a byproduct of war, the space race changing the nature forever. So consequently, when we formed NASA here in the United States, it was originally called the Space Task Group. So that was in 1958 that they formed that. And the Space Task Group led to the formation of NASA. What we did here in the United States was, once again, as most nations do, it was a lie. It wasn't really a lie. It was formed. It was supposed to be a civilian exploration endeavor. NASA was civilian. It was not military. For a large part, that was true. But as with all things, the military pervades everything. So today, of course, the latest president has finally officially declared that NASA is a defense contractor. It's no longer even a semblance of civilian. But when I was a kid, that was exactly what we were taught. NASA is the civilian exploration of space. Consequently, what I'm going to show you now, we'll just get right into it because you're going to hear today what has not even been released yet. I'll be going to Washington in a week, and I will be talking to the government there to explore this. Kids, this is what I discovered at an auction. The auction was up in Cleveland, and I've used Stein's got an image of it, and you see that UFO there? There's a UFO right there. It's a flying saucer. It's got portholes. You can see it all. It's on the cover of my 3 books. I've written 3 books on it. I've been investigating this for 3 years.
I can pull the picture up that you you
Cool,
sent
cool.
me.
I won't show any more pictures then because number one, you can't really see it. But number two, and for those of you,
Let's see.
there you go. And when you zoom in on that, okay, you can see what that says. It says, strange object is seen during the Gemini 11 flight. It says unclassified on it. Kids, you don't get to see the war that's been going on in the Gulf Coast on TV daily like we do over here. Here we have on TV every day, you will see a bombing of a ship or a missile striking a ship on TV and in the Persian Gulf. There you go. There, yeah, now get that flying saucer. Look at that, kids. This is a flying saucer. This is not a UFO. And you see the aura around it? That's from 1966, kids. This is a 1966 document. I had this paper analyzed at Microtrace from Chicago, Illinois, who does analysis for one of the places that does paper analysis for Scotland Yard, okay?
Oh,
So
wow.
I spent $5,000 to have this analyzed. I had tracking done on it to make sure no one got it. I found it in the back of the Gemini 11 binder from the founder of America's Space Task Group. The engineer's name was Scott Simpkinson. Hence, it's called the Simpkinson NASA briefing document. And it's a lithograph. It's not a photograph. The lithograph is, there you go, made from the photograph. Look
Yeah.
at those portholes, and I'll call them that. We know that it has to be some kind of energy distortion system. You notice they're not uniform, are they? A lot of people, when they first saw it, they said, oh, well, look how fake that is. That's it. He couldn't even get the portholes the same size and to line up.
Oh, but
Ta-da.
that makes it
Guess
more
what?
real.
That's because they're not portholes, they're energy dispersal systems of some kind, and you're seeing
Oh,
them actually in action. If it were a fake, yes, the elementary child who made that fake would naturally make the portholes all the same size. What you're seeing is you're seeing
yeah.
energy captured and processed. I've had it analyzed. We've had physicists in the back of the first book. First book I have is 650 pages, okay, approximately. There are 5 eminent scientists that have Their strict tests are in the back of the book. An analysis showing that the paper is consistent with the 1960 date is 80 pages long. And you can see this is a huge book, 650 pages. Okay, there you go. And
Oh,
there
that's
on the back
good
is the
stuff.
best cover, and you've got that one too. That's the original
Yeah.
Space Task Group from Cleveland, Ohio, that went down to Cape
Uh,
Canaveral. There you go. Right in the center, there's a beautiful, beautiful woman. That's Emily Ertl. She's the first female employee at Cape Canaveral in Florida. And that's the Space Task Group. NASA has not even been started yet. And that's the very first Mercury space capsule. And Scott Simpson's the
um,
chubby guy next to her. And you'll be able to bring that
let's see.
picture up.
I have that one too, of course. You
Cool.
sent me a lot already, which is great, of
Yeah,
course.
good. I'm glad. There
Yes.
you go, kids. Look at that. All right, that's the very first space capsule ever built,
Yeah.
and that was just when they returned in
Keep talking.
1959.
I have to let my
Yeah,
cat out. He's gonna keep complaining until I
that's
do. But
okay. I'll
keep
keep
talking. This is interesting stuff.
explaining to the people what's going on while the cat gets its break. So what you're looking at there, kids, is the very first space capsule built. It's the Mercury capsule. It was launched. It was called it was called on the Big John rocket, which was one of the original Atlas missiles, ICBMs, that they used to get these objects into space. The whole purpose of the experiment was to test the heat shield. When they developed it, nothing was known here. Those guys, you can probably see, they got slide rules in their pocket. We didn't have hand calculators. I have 150 of the very earliest NASA photos. It's the best archive, according to a man who worked on the Gemini project, the best archive that will ever be, because Scott Simpkinson is the guy who designed the blockhouses it launched from, designed and the procedures that would be used. He was the mission control chief engineer. His name is Scott Simpkinson, and that's his girlfriend for life, Emily Ertl, his secretary there. He was married immediately after college when he started for NACA, the predecessor to
Oh,
NASA. And he had one child, a daughter, and unfortunately she was disabled. And when
no.
when it came time that they tapped him to lead this task force down to the Everglades of Florida to battle the moccasins and water snakes that would climb in their door every morning, she said, "I'm not going with you." And his secretary was the first female employee at NASA. She went with him, and she's the one who remained with him up to his death in 1996. Where she's mentioned in the New York Times article as his lifelong companion. So
That's
those
amazing.
guys are the ones who started the space program. He is the chief engineer up until 1996. The archives are filled with data all about him. So let's get
Yeah.
on to the story that I'm going to just read to you briefly, because there's so much information that I can go on 4 hours for each of the 3 books I've written. So we don't
But
have that kind of time.
1996 is still pretty recent, actually.
Yes, 1996 is when he died. When he died, Emily Ertl, his girlfriend, they had her go to his office in Florida. And then, of course, they lived together in Houston at the Hughes Johnson Space Center, which was the new center. But they
Mhm.
still launched from Florida, so he had offices there. She cleaned out his office there and donated that archive to Southern Florida University. So if you look up the Simpkinson archive, you can see the Cape Canaveral archive there, which is quite
Okay.
a distance from Houston. And this is what they had in their home in Houston. Okay, so this was his private personal archive, and she built a lot of it. There's new early newspaper articles. We didn't have cell phones. Everything was done by newspaper. So she was
Yeah.
documenting for NASA the creation of the space system, and there's 150 at least newspaper articles describing the Mercury missions there. But
Oh,
let's
wow.
go on now. I can give you all the data that you need to know, all the scientific data that shows the authenticity of it, and we'll go back to that. But right here, kids, this is what I'm going to be bringing to Washington this week. It's just one small portion of this entire investigation. It's gone on for 3 years, but it's important because these are top secret documents that I just located. They're Freedom of Information Act documents. There are 3 of them right here, and they're very short. and they will prove the point. The point's this. For the last 90 years or longer, people have been trying to prove the existence of UFOs through the photographs that have been taken around the world. Here in the United States, we have congressional hearings where they call NASA executives to the front to testify. They put one hand on the Bible, they raise the other to God. And do you swear to tell the truth? Yes, sir, we do. And it's a crime to lie to Congress. You can go to jail for that. And here's what is part of the spycraft that I've uncovered, and that will explain what goes on. And they ask them time and time again. You've probably seen the hearings. We believe there are UFOs out there. Does NASA have any photos of UFOs? And hand on the Bible, they say, no, we have none. And everybody scoffs and says, oh my God, that can't be true. They're lying to us. But here's the way spycraft works, and that's what this article is going to prove to you. They're not lying. NASA does not have any UFO photographs. These three documents, top secret documents I've uncovered, will explain exactly why. This is the headline to what this document reads, and this was I'll bring to Washington next week. The headline says, Top Secret National Reconnaissance Office Documents. NASA film intercepted. Astronaut Gordon Cooper threatened fistfight as images were seized, downgraded, and never returned. Amazing, huh? That's the first one. That's from 1965. It's from the head of the National Reconnaissance Office, which was just created at that time. And the National Reconnaissance Office was secret from 1960 during its founding up until 1992, when they finally said that, yes, we do have a National Reconnaissance Office in charge of this. So these organizations were secret, and it's part of the reason why I never uncovered these documents until later, because I didn't know it was done till I was an old man already. So I didn't naturally go to them. I went to the CIA first for the files, which I came up with dozens of articles. But here's exactly what core evidence says. There's a top secret NRO directive dated August 9th, 1965 from Brockway McMillan, and it confirms intelligence authority over space-based imagery. That's the first document. The next document is a film interception at the aircraft carrier during the recovery stage, where angry astronaut Gordon Cooper threatens a fistfight. And finally, Scott Simpkinson, the man who has the briefing document, a direct internal response from Scott Simpkinson, NACA's original Space Task Group chief engineer and one of NASA's founding engineers, questioning why mission film was withheld. And I've got dozens and dozens of documents. But now I'll just read these to you, and you let yourself believe these are the actual documents. And I'm reading them because I'm giving you exact quotes. I don't want to paraphrase. I believe in exactness. I don't trust anyone. You can read this for yourself. The 3-page top secret memorandum from the National Reconnaissance Office states explicitly in regard to NASA photographs. 1. All Gemini acquired photography, both NASA and Department of Defense sponsored, is processed at the Manned Spacecraft Center Photographic Laboratory in Houston. And that's what everybody believes was, and it was the way that it started. So everybody believes that. He's just restating right there what it was. But this is 1965. And then he continues. I question whether either of those delegations is appropriate to matters of potential national and international concern. So he's questioning. And this is to Dr. Robert Siemens, the head of NASA in Washington. He further writes, in Washington area, the National Photographic Interpretation Center has a unique capability for both quality processing and interpretation of aerial photographs. I believe it would be our mutual benefit to transfer responsibility for processing, orientation, and interpretation of future Gemini or similar series photographs from the Mission Control Center to the National Photographic Interpretation Center. Okay, so he's saying we're doing it in Houston. We're letting NASA do it. Then he says, I don't think it's a smart idea. And then he says, I propose we do it at the NPIC, which is the CIA targeting laboratories. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the final clincher that will bring the other two in. So this is the most striking Macmillan recommendation. Concerns the handling of exposed film immediately after recovery. Now you got to remember, those space capsules dropped into the ocean. They flew a helicopter out, they picked it up, and they brought the helicopter back and dropped that capsule on the deck of the carrier, right?
Yeah.
Which is what he suggests. And he suggests double secrecy here. They don't want anyone to know. This is a top secret document. Since you will probably wish to avoid any arrangement which infers the involvement of NASA in a classified endeavor, I recommend that procedures for high-speed delivery of exposed Department of Defense and NASA film from the aircraft carrier to MPIC be arranged in a manner which will preclude contact with or reference to either the National Reconnaissance Office or the National Photographic Interpretation Center by NASA personnel or Department of Defense personnel on duty with NASA who are not properly cleared for National Reconnaissance Program access. Macmillan then proposes a specific mechanism for obtaining film. And I make sure this is in quotes, kids. This is the exact text you'll read. As a suggestion, it may be feasible for Colonel Sweet of your security staff to arrange pickup and delivery of the film. I would make arrangements for release of Department of Defense material to him or his representative on the carrier. So that's exact quotes. So he's saying you have Colonel Sweet. I'm going to send Colonel Sweet to pick up the film directly from the carrier before the astronauts even get back and the carrier even pulls into the fleet. Now, Gordon Cooper, the astronaut who was the commander of the Gemini 5 mission, right, which was this mission that was intercepted. So this is what he records following a review meeting, and this memorandum states, following the review, Gordon Cooper mentioned to me that he had called Dr. Siemens earlier in the week to express his concern about the handling of NASA film. And this is in quotes, kids. He stated that he was damned unhappy with the arrangements, and had he known that Colonel Sweet was picking up all the film, he would have had a fist fight on his hands aboard the carrier because he damn sure wouldn't have taken the NASA film.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, now have I tied that in, kids? Are you realizing what these documents are saying right there? One is the order, hey, we're not going to let NASA have that film first anymore. Two, we're going to have Colonel Sweet pick it up right from the carrier deck, and we're not going to let anyone know. It's secret so that no one can tie us into it. And three, astronaut Gordon Cooper, who was the astronaut that flew that mission, when he found out what happened, he said there would have been a fist fight because he damn sure wouldn't have taken the NASA film. These are documents.
So,
These are from Freedom of Information Act. So kids, right there, tells you a little bit. And now we finish up. He stated further that he was supposed to be a national program and it should be handled in that fashion. He stated that he was speaking as a NASA man. He indicated that they would not hear the end of this. So that's the section from Gordon Cooper. Now, the custody chain documentation does not stop there. Another memorandum dated September 3rd records a meeting involving Scott Simpkinson. Now, Scott Simpkinson is NASA's chief engineer, and actually, he was chief of the Gemini program. I have a beautiful wall hanging up of him where everybody in NASA signed it to him, thanking him for the great job he did. But it says, Colonel McKee received a call indicating that, and this is in quotes, Mr. Simpkinson was quite upset after having learned that all the film was not turned over to Mr. Gammon the night before. The memorandum continues, Colonel McKee asked Mr. Simpkinson in to meet with him and me. This gent was quite upset. Quieting his concern took quite some doing. So what we have there, we have exactly the mechanism that was enacted in 1965 with all NASA film. And what you're seeing is that they take the the film directly from the aircraft carrier. They take it to the National Photographic Interpretive Center, which actually was designed to make high-speed targeting information. In other words, when we took pictures, for us, it was the Cuban Missile Crisis at almost onset World War III with the U-2 fighter planes. They had to take those U-2 pictures and they had to process them and make them into lithographs. They're sanitized, and that's what you see on TV. You see that unclassified word. When you look at the modern Persian Gulf bombs, it's the exact same script. It's the exact same font. They have not changed it in 70 years. It's the same font, and it's the same process because you have wonderful, wonderful guys able to back engineer from these photographs. They can back engineer from this. They can tell you the focal length of the camera. They can tell you the kind of film that was involved. They can tell you where it was taken, the angle of incidence. They can even ingest perhaps the time that it was done due to this astronomical thing. These guys like Mick West is one of the best photo, and Mick West is the best evidence I have. He's a professional skeptic. He's the best evidence I have for why they had to make these documents sanitized. You cannot glean anything from it. It's a lithograph. It's a half dot lithograph. And from that, you can glean very little information. But you know what? When you show that to the president of the United States, that's a friggin' flying saucer, kids. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what we had with the Cuban Missile Crisis. President Kennedy, when I was like 8 years old on TV, holding up these pictures of Russian missiles being taken to the silo there. Guess what? That was taken by the U-2 spy plane. And that, too, was a sanitized briefing document. They were not about to show those U-2 photographs on national TV to be back engineered, right? So that's what the National Photographic Interpretation Center was created to do. I have the documents from 1957 and 1958, 2 volumes of released documents called HT Automat, and it's like 80 documents in each one of those volumes. HT Automat sounds really, really mild and tame for the program. Back here in the United States, an automat, we considered that 1911. Oh, an automat. That's where you would go into the store and at the turn of the century in New York City, and you would have a sliding mechanical door, and there would be a piece of pie behind it. And it was automatic, and you put and you get it, and yada yada yada. Oh, what a pleasant title, HT Automat. But what it doesn't really explain to you is what designation of that man it stood for: high speed targeting automation. They would take that off the fighter deck or off the aircraft carrier deck. They would fly it into Washington, D.C., the National Photographic Interpretive Center. They would immediately, with their super professional photographic capabilities, make it into lithographs and briefing documents because you could not let the original photograph go out. That's valuable spy information. People lost lives over stuff like that. And that's exactly why they made the lithograph, and then President Kennedy holds it up on TV, and you can show it. But meanwhile, the original that can be back engineered by the Soviet Union or whoever your current enemy is a human being. I don't say I'm any more innocent than anybody else, but I do know that that's exactly why this happened. So what you see now, and then I have the testimony from Underwood. What's his first name? Underwood was the mission control photographic analyst, the head of the photo department for NASA. When NASA was being formed, Werner von Braun learned of his previous work and his security clearances on the U-2 spy plane film. And he called him up where he was at the University of Colorado and says, I understand you can do photographs from 60,000 feet. You're an expert at that. And he said, yes, I am. And Werner von Braun said to him, what do you think you could do from 250,000 feet? And that's how he was hired to come into NASA. He asked him to come in, and he took over the photographic department for up until what was it? The interview with him took place in 2000. So from what would that be? Probably about 1958 to 2000. Underwood was the mission control lab director, not director, but technician. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
That's the difference between people. Scott Simpkinson was the engineer. The guys in Washington, D.C., they're the directors, they're the managers. You have other people who help build the spaceships, the higher-ups, like the guy we stole from Canada to build the Mercury capsule. And then they're the real directors and stuff. But the guy who was on the ground, and you can see this in all the hundreds and hundreds of documents I've read, is guys like Scott Simpkinson. He would do strange things. Now, here's where you go. And the first thing I did was I went to the voice transcripts, okay? The voice transcripts were secret from 12 years. So the mission on the Gemini 11 mission you see there, that was secret from 1966 to 1978. It says right on the cover, classified information, not to be released for 12 years, okay? That's the mission control statement, 350 pages, details every aspect of the mission that you want. I've read it thoroughly several times. Learning all 12 experiments that were done there gives me every detail of it. Then there's also the next thing you want to do, and that's the mission statement. The next is the mission voice transcripts. Once again, kids, secret for 12 years. So it's been 12 years before anyone ever read all the voice transcripts. And that's where I went to immediately, because my feeling is this: if I were in space and I saw a real UFO, I would not be able to contain myself. Okay. I would have to say something. And I also had the document in there that was released from that same trove of documents I just read to you that explicitly states where the astronauts, and this is this is mind blowing, kids. You're the first to hear this. I've got the document. It's in the book. Tells you exactly how the astronauts are not supposed to report what they see in detail. I've got the official document in here. I think forgetting the new, it's all in there. But that's less mind blowing than this, right? You can't get more mind blowing than we're going to take the film from NASA, and then they take it, they develop it in Washington D.C., and then I have documentation showing that not all the film was returned. David James, I think, has written a book. He's the former archivist for the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum here. And he wrote a wonderful book where he specializes on government and NASA and exactly how the spies took over. And in there, he documents, well, there's one experiment where they took over 200 pictures and only a few were ever released, and there's no other record of them. Proof, okay? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's proof. You're not allowed to say things like that. But kids, I'm a pragmatic person, right? I'm old. I'm going to die. I'm hoping someone will take this up and finish the story for me, okay? And I hope you guys out there will take what I'm telling you now and learn how to do these kind of investigations and help us get the truth out there. Like I said, originally I was a skeptic, but so much information has come to me that, and now it's all in documents. And I don't argue with the documents. If someone says they see something, that's fine. I see shit all the time. I'm sorry. Pardon my language.
No, that's all right. You can call it
Well, I mean,
you like.
it's not a good thing to do. I would like to think that I'm presentable in public, but I do the best I can. So I ask forgiveness if I offend anyone.
That's all right.
Good. So I don't believe things unless I have some kind of proof. These documents go back to the 60s, okay? And these are official documents, and they come from Freedom of Information Act documents. And I've got one more coming that has not come back yet from the National Reconnaissance Office, and they already called me about it. What happens is also in my book, kids, you researchers, go into the book. There's back in there is a document about it's the 1969 release of the National Photographic Interpretive Center Handbook. In other words, the guys who made this, they had a 1969 handbook that was secret, but they declassified it. So I went into it and I got all the things that they learned how to do. For instance, here's the interesting thing. Look at this. It says, strange object is seen during the Gemini 11 flight, right?
Yeah.
There's a skill to that. And that was written from the lessons they learned in the handbook. You and I would have labeled that something like flying saucer above the earth. But
Sure.
in order for spy technology to work and to make things difficult to find, strange object is seen during the Gemini 11 flight. They don't even use keywords like missions. There's a whole section on how to use language so that it's non-traceable and non-associatable. That's
So like that.
Now, this is
That
on the
way,
cover. This is the last direct evidence I give you photographically. I think you've got a copy of this. This is the cover of the book. Okay.
Let's see.
That's the cover of the third book. And what you're looking at here.
Mission cover photo, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. What you're seeing there, kids, is you're seeing this is the actual released NASA photograph. The big square is there we go. That big square, oh, beautiful. Good job, young man. Good job. The big square is actual NASA release photograph S66 54585 from the Gemini 11 mission on the Hasselblad camera. Excellent. Right there. Stop right there. Excellent. There you go. So the big background one is the actual one. You can get that. Just go to ASU, which stands for Arizona State University. ASU March to the Moon. NASA no longer has control over these photographs, and people are too interested in it. People have been searching these photographs for 70 years. For 70 years, people have been blowing these images up and saying, is that a UFO? And is there a UFO there or not? And they can't find anything yet. And NASA says we don't have any pictures of UFOs. But that's what's released. Arizona State University, March to the Moon, Gemini 11 mission, Hasselblad photograph number S66 54585. That's the big background one. What you see on the left-hand side in the darker square, because it's actually a black and white copy or segment of the original, and that's from page 4 of the 12-year secret mission report. And it is the very first image that they show in that 350-page mission report. And it's a black and white photo. It has a number. I don't have it written down here. This was done for me by Mark Braben, a wonderful photo technologist who made sure that the accuracy of what you see before you is absolutely his best rendition. What you see is the nose of the Gemini 11 craft, and right in front of it, that is the Agena space capsule that was used. The original purpose of the main purpose of the Gemini 11 mission was they flew the Agena up into space, then they launched the space capsule, and the task was they had to rendezvous with that Agena target within one orbit. The reason was it was preparation for the Apollo going to the moon, then launching up from the moon, and they had one orbit to connect with the return home vessel. And if they don't, they possibly run out of fuel. Okay.
Mm.
And this was successful and it was what made the mission so important. So that was a tether experiment. You can see there's a long rope hanging from it. That long rope, that tether, was used for, they called it the artificial gravity experiment. And they were hooked the two craft together, and then they did a gentle rotation to see if they could actually make the theoretically explainable artificial gravity. And they did. They released a pin inside the space capsule, and the pin floated up against the wall. So that was that. Though that was the last time that they were tethered to the Agena spacecraft. You can see they have just released it. I think the metadata says I think it's approximately 90 feet away. The important thing is this. What you're seeing is a direct overlay. You're seeing that black and white photo, or the black and white photo on the color photograph matches exactly the color photograph that it's laid upon. And you notice the clouds match 100%. The Agena capsules match 100%. That tether matches 100%. There is no difference. It is a direct overlay, and that kind of information is not something that you can fake if it's not real. Now, on the right is this strange lithograph, okay? And you can see flying saucer. Do you see it there? That's not in the March to the Moon image. But look in the lower left corner of that, and you see the cloud pattern there, and you see the intricacy of the forked clouds right there. You see the curvature of the Earth matches. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Look at that. That is an exact match.
I mean,
it's not. It's
absolutely.
It exactly matches the publicly available.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, this is
I've had it tested. It's from 1966. It's a halftone lithograph. It's exactly what's described in the National Photographic Interpretive Center lithographs that they made for briefing purposes. So that's pretty impressive, isn't it? But now leave that picture on there. Now let's describe to you what happens
sure.
next. I went to the voice transcripts, and when I got to the voice transcripts, there's an experiment called the D15 experiment. The D15 experiment was the very first television camera in space. The way it operated was there was an RCA camera. It was about a yard long, and it was behind the pilot's cabin back in the instrument module. And what happens is they were going to try night vision experiments, and specifically the reasoning is this: for military purposes, they want to track objects as they as they go over top of them. Correct? So you want to be able to track military ships or whatever from space. But there's a problem with the human being, and that's the human eye. Basically, every orbit was approximately 90 minutes, okay? And let's say average altitude of 180 miles above the equatorial plane. Um, it takes 90 minutes to go around the Earth once. During that 90 minutes, you have 45 minutes in the sun and 45 minutes behind with the sun behind the earth, right? So you have total darkness for 45 minutes. If you want to track something in that total darkness, here's the problem with the human eye. The human eye takes a full 20 minutes to reach full dilation so that you can have your fullest sense of night vision.
Oh,
So consequently, that means for 20 of the 45 minutes available on each orbit, you're essentially night blind.
yeah.
The purpose of this experiment with the TV tube or the first TV camera in space was um,
Mm.
they opened that there was a periscope on the flap. As soon as they unhooked that tether, okay, they knew that they were done operating the thrusters. And the thrusters, of course, put gas out and would coat your windshield or whatever on there. They didn't want that camera to be obscured. It was actually a periscope. The TV camera, the RCA camera pointed down through the bottom of the craft. The flap on the door opened. There was a mirror on it, and they shot this footage from the D15 experiment through that mirror into space. And the reason that they didn't start the D15 was they didn't open that flap door until they finished this artificial gravity experiment and no longer had to fire their engines. Now, later on, at the end of the experiment, they actually fired the engines so that they could judge the amount of residue that would get on the camera and obscure it. But here's the exact instant when that happens. And here's what the voice transcripts say. Now, I don't have it right here in front of me, but it's in the book. Everything that I'm telling you, I have the exact image, the exact page, everything underlined in the book. But here's generally what happens. It's about 54 hours and 34 minutes into the flight. And these voice transcripts are down to the second, kids, so you can match things across to the very second. But here's what happened as soon as they did that tether release. That's when they said, okay, we're going to do the 15 experiment. The previous pages say, yes, we will open the flap as soon as we release the tether and start the camera. Now, the camera was a strange kind of a mechanism because it was designed for night vision. Anyone who's ever worked on a radar screen on a boat in the middle of the night knows that you put your head down and there's a little, like goggles. You fit your head up against the goggles and you
Yeah.
look down while you're steering at night and you're steering by the radar screen. Okay. And anyone who's seen that, that's the same thing that they had in the space capsule. But there were two astronauts in there, and one of them was in control of the D15 experiment. And they were told exactly this. They said, you have a button in your hand the whole time that you're doing the experiment, and it's the camera shows that TV screen shows the Earth passing beneath you, like you see right there. As the Earth passes beneath you, okay, anything that's anomalous or that you want to record, and then they said we're going to do like 20 or 30 shots, just so that we can have a recording on film. So it's a six frame per second film that they transfer the electronic signal on. So it's more like what they're doing is they're watching a TV show, but every time he hits that button on his hand, it records it from the TV onto permanent film or your VCR, right? So that's how they did it with the very first television camera in space. And it wasn't designed to run for the 3 orbits or 270 minutes that it took to do the entire experiment. But he was explicitly instructed that, hey, if there's anything anomalous you want to capture, you've got that button right in your hand. You press that button. When you press that button, it actually makes a film recording at 6 frames per second. So, consequently, right at the time that they released that tether, this is what the voice transcript says. And again, I'm paraphrasing, you can read it exactly, but
Mhm.
basically it says, okay, they release it, they open the camera doors, and one astronaut says to another, did something fly by your window out there? And the other astronaut answers, yes, it did. And then one of the astronauts says, maybe we should turn around, indicating that he wanted to see what it was. And the other one says, no, and then it's garbled. But within 1 minute of that thing that they both confirmed seeing, they saw something fly by their window. Within 1 minute of that, they get a call from Houston. This is Mission Control. Would you please check your reading on your stack 5C, Charlie? And they say, yeah, let's see, it's down here on the lower left. And they look at it and they say, huh, it shows 0 amps, 0 voltage. And then Mission Controls, Roger, that confirms what we have. I didn't know it until I read the thing at least a half a dozen times. I read the entire mission transcripts. It didn't occur to me that the Stack 5C was the terminology for the battery of the spacecraft. There were 6 of these stacks of batteries that these spacecraft operated off of. So there's a thing that's common in UFOlogy that I think most people will recognize. We've all seen movies. What happens? The UFO flies over the car. What happens? The car battery dies. Are you familiar with that? Have you ever seen that happen? It's called the UFO electromagnetic response effect.
Yeah,
And
I'm
that
familiar with.
happened right here within 1 minute of them saying something flew by our window. They lost the battery. Is that phenomenal? But here's the next part, and it gets even better. So within 1 minute of that, where they've lost a battery, right? And they say, well, we're going to start back to ground zero and get things back on track.
Mhm.
Um, you can bet they were pretty busy, right? I mean, certainly if you lost your battery and you're in space and it's your only power to get home, you're going to be discussing things, right?
Yeah, you're
Right at,
scrambling for sure.
yes,
Yeah.
right at that instant, there's 6 minutes of no tape.
Oh.
There's a gap in the voice transcript. Okay, so that's pretty interesting, isn't it? They see something within a minute. They report that the battery is dead, and then within a minute of that, they have no tape. There's nothing recorded. And then when it comes back on, the first line when the tape comes back on is, "We're recording, aren't we?" And then they go on from there and they discuss what they're seeing. So this is neat, but then you tie it in with this other document that I have. It's also in the book. You can read for yourself. It's called the technical debriefing. Of course, every time a military man flies a mission or performs a mission, they immediately get the man back in with his controllers so that they can get an immediate up to the date debriefing before anything is lost or junction. So this was secret for 12 years too. And the debriefing has a very interesting series in that. And I've got it highlighted. I have the actual page. You can read it for yourself. I'm going to paraphrase it right here, but it's in the very first book. You can read it for yourself. And they say, during the D-15 experiment, we wanted you to take all kinds of photo footage with the D-15 camera. And
Mhm.
he said, and they say, yes, it went great. And they said, yeah, it performed flawlessly. We were able to get all these images, and it worked very well, and we were able to track with it. And then they said, were there any? I can't remember how they say it, but he said, were there any anomalies? And no, there were absolutely no anomalies at all during the filming. Hesitate, 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 except for one. And that one anomaly was during the initiation of the D-15 experiment when the stack C Charlie failed. That was the only, and they were required to record, hit that record button anytime there was an anomaly. There was only one time they did that, and that was right at the stack C. So what you're seeing is you're seeing the actual photo. You're actually seeing the overlay of the UFO on the photo.
Yeah.
You're seeing the mission control time when they say that they activated that at exactly the release that's shown in the photo, right? And then on top of that, you have the verification in the mission control that they did do that. What I did and what you have in the second book right here, I'll hold this up right here. That's one of the internet. Went to the National Archives and I retrieved 16,000 frames of footage from the National Archives of the D-15 experiment. Color Lab, the people who did the recording for me, there are only 3 laboratories certified to do National Archives film in the United States. Color Lab is the oldest one. When I finally located the film and found out, and they answered and said, "Oh yeah, we've got the D-15 film." I had the guy at Color Lab. I said, "I want to make a copy of it," but I said, "I want the highest resolution you've got." And he says, "Well, it only goes up to this far." And he was a really nice guy. And I said, "Listen, I'll pay for it. I know you teach at George Washington University. Can
Mhm.
you get a higher resolution?" He says, "Well, yeah, I can go out and buy one." And so he did. And so I had the highest resolution footing of those 16,000 frames ever. This is the
Wow.
cover of one of them. This was taken, then there's 16,000 frames. They're all numbered 1 to 15,997, something like that, yada, yada.
Mhm.
They're all listed. I have every one of them, but I put this one on the cover of the book because what happens is you see the previous frame right there. That's the previous frame of film. When he hits the actual when you hit the actual button, it takes a picture of the Accutron clock for 6 frames, and it records it on the previous 6 frames of film, and what you saw right there. So, what's down I'm at the bottom here and at the top here,
Mhm.
that's right after I hit the button, and it's on the new film. So this is the new image, but it prints that on the previous film. So if you go to the previous film, you will see this in the previous film. Guess what? When you go to the previous film of that, it's not there. So the film is missing. It's been cut out, but
Yeah.
they didn't cut this part, which is on the new film. So
Yeah.
all the previous film with its own timestamp is there. So pretty interesting. Kids, go to Amazon.com. These are actual photographs, okay, that come from the D-film. There's the blue flying saucer. I sent you an image of that. Look at that. That's from the D-15 film. That's from the D-15 film. That's from the D-15 film, and it's matched up by Dr. Stephen Brown of Ohio State University for me. Notice how the lights match up with the lights on the lithograph. So you
Yeah.
have another 15,000 more frames of film, okay? So I've been working on this for 3 years, and now I've finally come across those amazing documents, and that's the story. You can now see that they've left NASA out to be the red herring that detracts from everything. So everybody keeps asking NASA, "Where's your UFO film?" Well, guess what? They never got it back. And all the other documents, and I have dozens and dozens, literally scores of documents corroborating this from the CIA documents, and you can get those documents. Everything's online. I've got everything in there so you can verify what I say. Don't believe me. I wouldn't believe me. Look at me, right? You wouldn't buy a used car from me, would you? Don't believe me. Look for yourself. I've been as thorough as I can for an old man, okay? I'm
Mhm.
tired. I want to finish this. I want someone to look at it, and that's what I'm going to Washington for next week to see if we can get someone at Washington to complete this estimation. And when they do, take a close look at that flying saucer, kids. When you get close enough, you can see what looks like panels on the actual hull. We've done matches with the reflectivity of the hull. It reflects the sun, and it matches the angle of the sunlight off that Agena capsule that you saw. I can go on for hours and hours and hours of the amazing things that I found. Okay. But we don't have that kind of time. And I'll probably be dead before I get to tell anyone the full story. But there's a bunch of books out there, kids. Go buy the books and then someday say, "Hey, look, that old fart was right." So that's basically what I wanted to get to you today.
Poor.
That's got to be. I don't know if you're convinced, but I'm convinced that. Oh, and then here's the final part on it. Again, there are more documents in there. It documents what actually happened to the film at the laboratory that they intercepted from NASA. Okay, so NASA didn't develop the film; they took it there, they developed it, they measured. It's called degradation. Okay, they were measuring how fine an image they could see, which was acuity, image acuity. I can't think of the word right now. But basically, they were testing with some of the lenses. They could look at Andrews Air Force Base and they saw in some of the NASA film a 20-foot, and they knew the measurement of it, a 20-foot long bar. So that they got that right from the image. And so that's how accurate the film was. Memorandums, and there's a whole series of memorandums where they measured the stuff. Brockway McMillan says, we consider anything at an accuracy of 60 feet to be a threat to national security. So, and if you can get a resolution, that's the word I'm looking, image resolution. And it says, we took the NASA film, we have 20-foot resolution. With our special spy camera, we got 10-foot resolution. Anything that's 60-foot resolution is a threat to national security. And then you find out all the film that they developed, they made interpositives, which means a negative from the negative, a second generation. And here's the other thing that's amazing. This comes from the Johnson Space Center, Richard Underwood. That's his name, Richard Underwood. He says, here's what most people don't know. Congress, do you want to know whether you're looking at a real first generation negative? Well, he says right in there, and it says so right in the memorandum too, because they screwed it up. The original NASA camera film was the thickness of saran wrap, which over here, it was of a nylon base. They found that they couldn't, it was regular acetate base would deteriorate in space. They developed their own like saran wrap. And even the National Photographic Interpretive Center didn't know that until they went to develop it, and they ruined a bunch of it. And astronaut Gordon Cooper raised hell with him and said, "Talk, you God's frazzle mother, who let you?" And he thought it was done. And here's the other thing. He asked the guy who was interrogating him too, if it was done at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Okay, the significance of that question. And the guy didn't. And the guy answered him no, but then he let it go at that, because Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is the purported. Now, this is UFOlogy that I'm not into. I'm in a document. It's the purported home of the Roswell crash vehicle. So that's what Cooper asked. He says, "Did they do this at Wright-Pat?" And he dropped it for a while. He said, no, they didn't. Well, they didn't. They did it at the National Photographic Interpretive Center. So we know where that's in there, because we know exactly where Sweet took it. And we have the documents saying that they did take it. And we have the documents saying that we degraded it and we made the interpositive. And the interpositive, which is the negative that they sent back to NASA. And they use the word take. Okay. They don't say original name. They say take. And the take was an interpositive set back to NASA. And the measurement on the negative there, its acuity was 100. So the film's capable with a special lens of 10 feet. The Hasselblad by itself is capable of 20 foot. And then the danger level is anything 60 feet or greater. And then in the document, read for yourself, what we sent back was 100-foot resolution. So the film that everybody's been looking at, all these generations in searching, has been degraded purposely. And that's why you can't find what you want. And then I have the listing of, from that Gemini 11 mission alone, there are 2 guaranteed photos that they never returned to them. And they had to do with a Syrian, Russian anti-aircraft missile site, or Egyptian. It was an Egyptian one. And then I think the other one was like an Israeli airfield that got into those pictures, and those were never returned to NASA. But those are listed by David, the guy from who just wrote the book, and I don't have it. I'm bad with names, kids. I could probably tell you every bone in the human body, but I can't tell you Stein's last name right now. But and just so you know, that's just a fault of mine. But these items are in the books. Everything is documented. Everything is gotten by page number. And here's the interesting thing too. Let's talk about the guy who's corroborating this information from another set. This is Richard Underwood. Richard Underwood started out originally in World War II as a CB. He was there offloading ammunition crates onto the beaches of these
Hmm.
horrifying World War II places, right? And I don't know what you know about CB. CB stands, it's an American term for construction battalion, which means that before we send the soldiers there to do anything good, you got to go in there and build an airfield. Okay, so in other words, it's bad enough being the first guy to hit the beach, right? With the
Yeah.
soldier and a bunch of other guys. No, you have to go in before them, all right? It's dangerous. So they're off there offloading crates of ammunition. That's where he started. He got the GI Bill for doing that, went and educated himself, became a photographic expert working for the National Geological Survey. Almost all analysts nowadays for in every other field starts out working for the National Geographical Survey, just like you and I were talking about earlier about maps making, right? And how all that Russian terrain, they didn't have any maps, and they had to, the
Yeah.
guy with the thing had to be thanked, didn't he? Why did he have to be thanked? Because we need those maps and we don't have any way of doing it. Well, that's exactly what Richard Underwood started doing. And from there, that's where he was recruited by, well, I will just say there's no documentation of this, but you can hear it in his own oral testimony. I'm assuming he's talking about the CIA. What you've got is you go to NASA archives, all right? NASA's got its website right on the pages. Go to NASA Oral Histories, Johnson Space Center Archive. Just put
Hmm.
NASA Johnson Space Center Oral Histories. What happened, it was, and it's coincidental that they started doing it in 1996, the year that Simpkinson died. Okay. And what happened is this was, well, these guys who created NASA, who created the Space Task Group, who go back to World War II, when Simpkinson died, these guys at NASA said, hey, guess what? All his knowledge has been lost to us. We're going to do oral histories. So they have about 40-minute interviews with every one that was still alive in the earliest NASA histories. And
That's
that's
pretty
where
smart.
Richard Underwood's history was done in the year 2000. And he talks about what happened to him. And again, I'm going to give you quotes here. They're in the book. They've got the page number. Let me see what page number 2 from his Johnson Space Center Oral History, Richard Underwood, approximately year 2000. The interview starts off, and by page 2, he tells a story. I was working in Honduras, and while I was working there in Honduras, I met a Honduran woman, and I married her. Okay. But the general I was working for, when he learned that I had married this foreign woman, called me into his office. And this is in quotes. Okay. You can read it yourself. I should take you out and have you shot right now as a traitor without a trial. This is in the Johnson Space Center, Richard
What?
Underwood oral testimony. So, kids, this is serious business. We were scared to death. Nuclear war was no longer a matter of hours, but a matter of minutes. And the secrecy came about because of that. And they aren't playing, and they aren't playing today. Now, I don't know about you. This is the way the world is now. It's the way the world's always been. But I know if I had a kid and they were going to send him off in a war to fight somewhere, I wouldn't want them to be able to back engineer from a photograph something that would get my kid killed either. It's human nature. We protect, we fight, we play teams. For us here in the United States, we have riots when we have basketball games. We just had them in New York last night. Thank God we don't understand that crazy game you guys play. What's it called? Soccer or something like that, or foosball.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
soccer for the
that's
Americans.
how human beings are. We segregate into groups and we compete, and then when things get out of hand, we kill each other. So I don't
Yeah.
want.
There's always,
I understand the secrecy that's involved, and I
sure. I mean,
wouldn't.
there's
I
always
wouldn't
some
want to
form.
threaten my. But here's the thing: the UFO things were caught up in this secrecy. They
Yeah.
were caught up because of national security, and NASA was not lying. Those 3 documents I read to you earlier, do they prove to you, I will ask you, does that prove to you that the photographs were intercepted and they didn't get them all back? And what they did get back was degraded. Does it seem like that? And once you read those documents for yourself, would you think that's the truth?
I would think that that is the truth presented to us. Yes.
Yes. So that's why I'm hoping that this will bring further investigation in Washington.
I mean, I am part of another podcast across the pond. We cover more.
Oh, across the pond. Well, I did one with you guys.
Yeah, across the pond, UK. With
Yeah. Was that you? You don't remember me? Or was it two
oh,
other guys?
I don't think I was. That was with you. You probably had the
Yeah, there were
conversation
two
with.
guys and across the pond. Yeah, and I did it with my partner Seth, my young computer guy.
Oh, oh, that was probably with Lee, UAP Lee.
Yes, that's what he called himself, and because I'm
Yeah.
old, and
Oh shit!
my
Really?
ears.
Okay. Oh, cool.
Well, yeah, you've already got my podcast.
Yeah. Well, no, I wasn't. I wasn't part. I wasn't part of that one. I wasn't. I
Yeah,
wasn't
right.
there.
No, otherwise we would have remembered each other.
Yeah. Oh shit! Really? Okay.
Yeah, I know you've got a whole podcast across the pond
Yeah. Oh, that's funny because
with UAP
I
Lee.
actually. Yeah, with Lee. Yeah. Okay. Because that's funny. I actually just sent him a message like, "Hey,
No,
I'm recording something that would be cool for you
this is
guys
your
as well."
second one, so you can throw this one away. This one doesn't.
Oh no, definitely not. No, I mean this is my own. This is my own show. Across the
Oh,
pond, I'm just like co-host, co-owner. This is me.
well, you've got a scoop here, so I'll let you know. As far as I'm concerned, it's a scoop. Uh, as I said, all these books, if you want to find information and check this out for yourself, you don't have to buy the book, first of all, but just enter Simpkinson NASA briefing document. The reason I say briefing document is just because Amazon.com, I've written 3 books with similar titles over 3 years, and they don't have them all together. The AI decided that I don't know how you could confuse Ed Wilson with another Ed Wilson. I mean, it's only a common name. So that's what happened. And so my books are disjointed. You want the most recent one. You want to look at all 3 of them, though. Once you get onto there, look at all 3 because you don't have to buy the book, kids. I tried to put actual photographs on the front and the back of everything. You don't
Yeah.
have to buy the book, but you want to get an idea of what's in it. You want to see the blue saucer. You want to see S66 54584. You want to see Professor Brown's match of the D15 lights with the actual lithograph. You want to see images. I try to put them on the books. And you don't have to buy the book. No one reads books anymore nowadays. But the first book does have over 150 of the earliest NASA photos, the entire Mercury archive of the man who was in charge of the space task group that did that entire program. 150 photographs, 9 by 11, many one's secret. And just so you have a monetary value on the photographs that you're looking at. I didn't sell those, and there was 564 photos in 31 binder archive. Of
Wow.
those 564, I sold 230 at Heritage Auctions in Dallas, Texas, which is the home of the world's best space auction. You can find them there on the sale of March of what year was that? Probably 24. Um, just look up Simpkinson Archive because I said, well, you can sell them, but I want you to put each photograph there with the name Simpkinson Archive so that
Hmm.
it's trademarked under my work. And I sold 220 of them for $80,000.
So
So
that's
the photos in that first book, the first book's expensive. I put 9 by 11 photos in there, and it's the best archive I think that will exist. What's his name? Oh gosh, darn it! He let me put an article. Narcan. He was not Narcan. Narcap. The original organization NARCAP was done by a psychologist for NASA during the Gemini program, and he was kind enough to say that that'll be the best photo archive ever. and it's wonderful. The pictures are absolutely amazing. The times that we lived in, kids, are nothing like you imagine. They built that spacecraft, the one where you saw the guy standing in front of it, looks
Yeah.
kind of like a World War II tow truck garage, doesn't it? Can you imagine that's where we built things today? The original capsule was wheeled out on a tow truck itself, right? And guess what? The tow truck had a split screen windshield. It had a little half window here and a little half window there. Do you know why it had that back then? Because we didn't have the technology to build a single piece of safety glass to keep you from being torn to shreds when you flew through the window as you hit a tree. We couldn't build one that big. So we had to make two little windshields. That's the
That's
technology that this stuff comes
yeah.
from. Phenomenal, phenomenal time. And the back engineering that goes on today makes you wonder, gee, how is it? So I'm a documentarian. What you have are documents. Don't believe me. Believe your own eyes. Believe the documents. You see the sources that I've used. I've got copies and images of the sources that you can read. I tried to make evidence. So that's what I think distinguishes me from the other programs is
Yeah.
that I'm evidence based, and I hope I've done a good job. And someday when I lay my head down for the last time, someone will say, "Gee, that was a pretty good job."
Oh, I'm 100% sure that Lee from across the pond.
Tell him I said hi. That's
I
so
will.
cool.
I will. it's funny that of course you went on across the pond. Of course. I mean Lee has
Well, this
he
story was
has
not on Lee. Okay, I did Lee. This is new information. Okay.
awesome. Well,
I just got this back from the printer, probably getting close to a month ago.
oh
So
wow.
this is, yeah. So that's why I'm telling you what you got today, no one has.
Oh damn.
I hope you,
That's
yeah. So,
that is a
yeah,
scoop for
take
sure.
advantage of it if you can. You're a nice guy, and I enjoyed being with you.
Uh, I'm I sure will. I mean I have the all of the pictures and documents that
Oh,
you sent me, of course.
yeah.
I
Like I
know
say,
that
I want people to see that I'm not making this stuff up, and I'm glad you have that.
I mean
That's why I send it.
that's why I pulled up some
Yeah,
of
and
the pictures
it worked good.
that you showed me. I mean, you sent me them, so I might as well
That's
use
what
them.
they're for. I want people to see this. I want people to say this is different.
Yeah, and I'll try if I can archive those pictures, so I can have
Oh,
like an archival link in the description as well, so that people may see it at any time and make up
yeah.
their own minds about what it is.
Yeah, all I want, guys, I'm not gonna be here forever. The biggest joy I can get is when I put something in a museum somewhere. That's the big joy for me. Okay, if I had a bunch of money, I'm too old to enjoy it anyway. I want you guys to see as much as you can, and I want you guys to answer the question. That's my biggest thing. And
And
if
that's
I can give you some instruction, someone out there wants to do a Freedom of Information Act, they need to go to my memo on the National Photographic Interpretive Center 1969 handbook. That's what I'm waiting on right now. It should be coming within a month now, they tell me. I used the handbook and they called me up and they said, well, we got a lot of hits. You're going to have to pay $1,200 minimum. So I did.
jeez.
The report, there were 90-page science report verifying it from Chicago, Illinois. It's cost me $5,000, and that was when a Whopper was 2 for $5. A Whopper is what we call food over here. What do you guys?
I am aware.
So I have not spared any expense as much as I can. I'm a man of meager means. Okay, so
And I gotta
this is
say,
important to me, and it's important. You know what? I seem to be built strangely, and I don't think anyone else would spend 3 years doing this kind of thing. And I don't do it as work. I do it because it's fun. God, I
yeah.
have more fun.
I
I have
mean,
more fun doing this.
if Lee had if Lee has the funds, he'll be doing this stuff. He'll be doing this stuff nonstop. Absolutely.
Oh,
I'm
well, make sure you tell him to get the third book, go to the MPIC handbook, and learn how to build a Freedom of Information Act that will get you results. And here's the interesting thing. Just 2 days ago, there was a release by the Department of War here in the United States. I don't know if you're aware of it. They just released their third tranche of their, what's it called, pursuit of secret documents. that they've said declassified. President, whatever his name is, Trump, wanted them declassified and answer the UFO question. This was the third tranche. And in there is the Gemini 7 voice transcripts. And in the
Hmm.
voice transcripts, they talk about a bogey, okay, which of course is our term. Bogey is a term for, in your World War II parlance in all the movies over here, bogey at 10 o'clock. Now, that's what they'd say on the radio, and they would all turn their heads to 10 o'clock and see that they're being attacked or whatever. And that's what he said. He said bogey at 10 o'clock or something. I don't know the time. But then they describe it and says, no, it's not the capsule. No, it's in a polar orbit. And here's the interesting thing that I determined on it. For years and years, I've been aware of that voice transcript. I read that years ago, but it had been declaimed. It had been made fun of because they says, well, it's nothing but ice crystals off of the space capsule, right? Well, what they neglect to tell you because is they talk about how it's in a polar orbit, and they say, yes, they're going into a polar orbit, and they say, yes, it's at 90-degree path from us. All manned space flights have been in the equatorial plane, right? And
Yeah.
we could not even, the equatorial plane did not even carry the manned spacecraft over the Soviet Union, right? It's only a
Hmm.
narrow plane up and down that you can go. In order to get the complete Earth, you have to have a polar orbit from one pole to another. That way, as the Earth turns underneath you, you have different northern climes in there. When you go around the equator, you can't see the top or the bottom. You only see the equatorial countries.
Yeah.
They describe it in all the debris and all the flecks are going in a polar orbit, which means so they debunked it saying it's just off their own spacecraft. Guess
Mm.
what? If
That's
it's
that's
in going into a polar orbit, that's impossible, isn't it? It has to go in the same orbit you're going in. So I just
Yeah.
determined that the other day. And look at it, they just brought it up. It's a recent release. You guys who followed this stuff closely and have the time for it, you'll realize that what they're saying was on the Gemini 7 mission. This is the Gemini 11 mission. So if you're going to believe what they just released there in the national things now, we'll see what happens. I think I presented a good argument. I hope you guys will follow through on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some of my audience absolutely will. You have presented some amazing stuff, and just the fact that the well, intelligence services, like back in the 60s, were already like claiming this stuff. It's like, no, 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 it's ours now. I mean,
Yeah, I
that,
mean, it's pretty much documented right there, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah,
When you
no,
had the
absolutely.
astronaut saying, "If I'd known you were taking our NASA film," right?
And I think there are definitely also going to be some people who will refuse to believe that NASA indeed does not have the pictures.
Well, not from just those 3 hours. You have to read the other 72 pages that I have.
Yeah,
What you have there is basically 3 pages.
it's
The other
yeah, it's
72 pages are more evidence, all right? But it's an easy read for those who enjoy reading.
which luckily is still a large part of my audience.
Yes, exactly. That's why I'm so glad to be here. Kids,
Well,
go
and
out there and take this work up. I would like to go ahead and die in peace, okay? I'm no better I'm no better at dying than I am at running a computer, so I'm gonna be here a while with you, but
wow, that's a lot of information. I definitely have to gotta
yeah,
take
get in
some
touch
time
with
to
the boys
digest all
across the
this.
pond and thank them profusely for me. They were some of the
I
first to get
will. I definitely
I mean,
will.
it's been a 3-year investigation, but what you have today, they don't know. Okay, it's cool, huh? Isn't that cool?
That's really cool, and I'm very happy and very happy that the Greyhorns got the scoop and across the pond.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry
guys.
guys. I do love you guys, but hey,
Well,
I mean,
no, oh,
this
yeah,
is my
yeah.
ocean.
I mean, the Greyhorn people, right? You are a very, very important part of humanity, right? You're understand, trying to
Yeah,
understand,
we're trying to understand, to
and to
uncover, to.
Uncover it's lost. It's like we were discussing earlier. Over here in the United States, we all crossed an ocean and we lived in teepees and huts and everything else, and we don't have our ancestry. So for us, it's a big reclamation thing. It's a reclamation to say, "Who am I?" And that's what we all do as human beings anyways. And that's what the purpose of this UFO investigation is too. Who am I? And where do I fit in this universe? So
Yeah.
that's the question that you guys seek a Greyhorn, and it's a question that we all seek in whatever way we seem to be suited to do so.
And we're all taking it from different angles, but the question is basically the same, which is indeed who are we and where do we come from? How do we fit in the bigger picture?
Wonderful. Well, it's been a pleasure, and thanks for having me on your show. Kids
Yeah.
out there, it's been wonderful for you guys to listen. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it stimulated some interest for you. Time for you to step up to the plate. That's what we
And
say here
I'm
in our
sure.
baseball time. Step up to the plate. You're at bat. I'm gonna lay down.
And for those who are interested and who do still read books, where may they find your books?
The easiest place is Amazon.com. Amazon.com books. There are 3 books. The original is the Simpkinson NASA Archive UFO with over 150 many once secret pictures. The second book is called Hidden Under Our Nose, how the Simpkinson lithograph matched photographic evidence in other NASA photos. And then the final one that really will tie it all together. And I would just say go to this one immediately because that's where you'll find nothing but secret documents, all based on it's all based on documents anyways. But government top secret documents are pretty irrefutable that come from Freedom of Information Acts. That's for me, that's the gold standard. And then, of course, the NASA archives, where you got the guy saying the general said I should be taken out and shot without a trial. That's pretty big news for those of us who live in the mundane world. And it's all recorded in miles and miles of 16,000 frames of film from the National Archives no one ever retrieved before. That's pretty cool. I
That's
got
pretty
it. Oh,
big.
and you can find it Seth Lamancusa on YouTube. Seth Lamancusa, Gemini 11 UFO is a video that he made when we first made the discovery. And the way to find it is his name is Seth Lamancusa, but it's Gemini 11, and 11 is XI. Gemini XI UFO. He did a great job. A 10-minute video will give you a background on all these people and all the characters. But it's at a stage where we were saying, we had not much evidence then, but he presents some of it and wonderful pictures. And he also has a Dropbox where you can get the photos in his video, and you can also request the 16,000 frames of National Archive footage that only I have. Seth Lamancusa, Gemini 11. That's Gemini XI UFO. You can request from him Dropbox. I don't care who has it. It's not about money. Answer the question.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure that the links are in the description box down below. I always want to make sure that my guests are well represented as well, especially ones who bring a story like you did, who present just amazing evidence like you
Yeah.
just did for us. Yeah, thank you very much, man. This has been awesome. Thanks
It's
for
been it's been a pleasure talking with you. I love getting to talk to European people. Kids, I'm just a little homegrown corn cob here in Ohio, okay? So I'm not a world traveler. I've been around here a number of places in the country. European history is so fascinating. The place you live is the home of Western culture and civilization, from which my own hillbilly culture derives. So yeah, as you look at your Nordic roots, I look at my Western civilization roots, and you guys have a phenomenal home.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for the compliment. That's much appreciated. So, yeah, and of course, thank you to my lovely audience for watching. Thank you all for listening because, without my audience, I mean, these conversations would still be amazing, but, I wouldn't have anyone to spread them with. So, yeah, make sure to, of course, like, share, and subscribe,
Yes.
especially the share. Like, this is a story to be shared. Share it far and wide. Share it with your brother, your sister, your grandmother, your cat. For all I care, not sure if they'll listen. They're still cats.
They already know. Cats
Exactly.
know the answer.
Oh yeah. If you ask them, they definitely know the answer. They always know better. But that's cats. We love them. If you're listening to this on the on Spotify, do please give us a 5-star rating. It's a small effort, but helps us out so much. Check out our website, www.greyhornpagans.com, for everything that we do. Join the Greyhorn Pagans network. I have started up my own podcasting network, of course, because I have been doing this for a few years now. I'm not presenting myself to be an expert in any way, but I do know what I'm doing, at the very least, and I want to help other podcasters, other indie podcasters, with growing, with making some money off their podcasting, because that's the hardest thing there is, making money doing this, and just help overall. If you want to support the Greyhorn Pagans, go to patreon.com/Greyhorn Pagans. I have, of course, several tiers with all kinds of benefits. You can get early access to the podcast, full, raw, uncut, just the audio bit cleaned up a bit, so it's nice to listen to. The Greyhorn Book Club, of course, where we are currently still reading Night Side of the Runes. We did talk about the runic script earlier a little. It is fascinating and so much more to it. Check out the readings that I do, of course, with Zerolath every Sunday, now live on the channel. I think that's about all the plugging done that I should be doing. It's a lot. We're doing a lot, but hey, we're trying to help everyone, not just ourselves. So that's why we're taking it as broad as we can. So again, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Patreon.com/Greyhorn Pagans for early access and the full show, including the, let's call it pre-show. Yeah, so everybody have a good morning, good evening, good night, whatever it may be to you. And I will see you all next time on the Greyhorn Pagans podcast with yet, of course, another amazing guest, because when do I not have amazing guests on? It's been good. Thank you all. Bye-bye. This was yet another amazing episode of the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. We thank you all for watching. We thank you all for listening. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you will be notified whenever we upload something new. Support us on Patreon for early access and for everything else that we do with the tribe, for everything else that we do with the podcast. Find us on www.greyhornpagans.com. For now, we thank you, and until next time.